Have you been thinking about homeschooling? Stick around. We're going to talk about one of the biggest advantages to homeschooling, the ability to adapt to each kid's needs. Coming up next. Welcome back. One of those big things that really draw a lot of people to homeschooling is the fact that you can teach each kid the way that they learn. You've got some flexibility. You can give them that individual attention, and as they grow and learn, you're able to adapt and to be flexible and to teach them the way that they learn. So in this video, we want to take a little bit of time and talk about not only some teaching techniques or some teaching styles, but some learning techniques and some learning styles of how different kids process things, how different kids learn, and the different ways that things really connect with different kids. So Stephanie's going to kind of go over some of the different main learning styles or
styles.
Styles, that's the right word. Okay.
Yep. So one of the first learning style is a visual learning style, a spatial learning style. And to be a visual learner, you prefer pictures and images and understanding the space around you. The next one would be an auditory musical learning style. So you want to use sounds and music. The third kind would be verbal, which you prefer using words, both written words and spoken words. The next one would be physical, the kinesthetic learning style. So you want to use your hands, your body, your sense of touch. Then there's logical or mathematical. So you'd prefer using logic, reasoning, that sort of thing to learn. The next one is social learning style. It's exactly what it sounds like. You prefer to learn in groups or with another person. And the last kind is solitary learning style. So again, you want to work by yourself. You want to do some self-studying. So what does that mean? That means that each of your kids are going to have a learning style or two, a couple of those styles that they're going to learn best by. And once you know, by studying your kid, and getting to know, really know your kid and how they're going to learn, then you use that to really teach, especially the stuff that they struggle with. So as I'm reading through this and thinking through this, I'm going, our son is a physical learner. And so to teach him letters, I would put letters out on the floor on a piece of paper or something and have him jump to the letters rather than a flashcard.
Yeah.
If the auditory, the musical learning style, you may make up songs and rhymes to help him remember. I think in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Yeah.
And those little things if they're an auditory learner. So study your kid, and it may take some trial and error to figure out what their learning styles are, and they're not going to probably have one particular learning style.
They're going to be a mixture of two or three,
right,
most of the time.
Right.
And their learning style might change as they grow up, as they get older,
Yep.
As they mature.
Yeah.
And it might be more important, like you said earlier, on certain subjects that they struggle with.
Right.
To hone in on, maybe it's harder to teach this subject in whatever style my kid learns in, but this is the subject they're struggling with. So I'm going to do the extra work here because we're going to figure out how to make this a song or a game or
right.
something visual.
Yep.
And the cool thing is that you are the parent, you're the expert on that
right.
kid. You've got the time invested that unfortunately the amazing school teachers that are out in the public school system, they don't have the ability and the time to spend the time that you do with each one of those students to be able to teach each one of them differently. But if you're educated at home, I mean, you've got some flexibility. Now, we've got 4 kids, so we can't just have a completely separate everything for every kid. I mean,
Right.
a lot of it is.
Yeah.
But being careful to notice those different things that, oh man, this kid just learns so much better when we do this, is the great part of homeschooling.
Right.
So,
Yep.
awesome. Anything else?
Nope.
So that's kind of what we had on learning styles. We're going to transition a little bit into some philosophies of education.
Yep.
And the different kinds of things that as you are teaching and designing what your day looks like, what your routine looks like, these are going to be kind of the ways that the overall philosophies that maybe you use as you go into your planning.
Yeah.
About right?
Yeah, and it also, when you think of the kids' learning styles and also the different kinds of homeschooling, and I'm going to give you some examples of these in just a second. But if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I really like this teaching style, then you can use that as a jumping spot for your curriculum decisions. And you know, if I don't want this, then I know that I'm not going to use this curriculum because that's based off of it or something. So, so a couple of the different kinds of homeschooling methods. There's the traditional homeschooling method, which is basically you recreate what happens in a public classroom at home. And yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Desks, work areas that are
right, raising
defined.
your hand to talk and
Start at a very specific time, end at a very specific
Yeah.
time, recess.
Yep. And there's, for traditional homeschooling, there's curriculums that you put in a VCR tape or DVD, whatever, and watch the teacher teach. So traditional homeschooling is definitely recreating school at home. Then there's road schooling and world schooling, which are, again, right, what they say is taking learning on the road. You're going to do a lot of traveling and learning while you are moving around, while you're on adventures. Not, an adventure to the park or something, but you're going to learn about, I don't know, the Civil War by visiting those places, or, you know what I mean? Then there's the unschooling approach, and unschooling gets a bad rap sometimes in that a lot of people will think, well, unschooling means that you're not really teaching them much. But if you really look into the unschooling method, it is more of a child-led learning, and so the parent would expound on what the kid's interested in. If your daughter finds a frog and loves frogs, then you pick up that interest and you learn how to read by reading books about frogs, and really focusing on what the kid wants to learn and then expanding that for them.
That's one of those ones where there's unschooling and then there's unschooling.
Yes.
And there's some of what I might consider irresponsible unschooling.
Yes.
Where it's a lazy, they're not really educating their kid.
Right.
And then there's more of a free-formed, goes, like you said, led by the kid's interest and passions.
Yeah.
More than the parents' agenda.
Yeah.
So that there's degrees of in the unschooling.
Yeah, definitely. The next homeschool method is an eclectic homeschooling. So it's taking a little bit of the road schooling, it's taking a little bit of the traditional school and a little bit of this, and making it work, a little bit of all of that, making that work for your family. Then there's classical homeschooling. Classical homeschooling is really focused on learning language arts and math and science and Latin and almost an old world sort of approach to education. Then there's Montessori homeschooling, and that is another, like unschooling, it's very child-led, but it's a little bit more teacher-driven child-led, if that makes sense.
It's not an oxymoron.
No.
It's only as if you say it is.
It's almost more like, I'm going to provide you these 4 activities, and then whichever one you choose, then we'll expand on that one. And instead of, here's the world, what do you want to learn about? It's, here's 4 topics, what do you want to learn about?
Yeah.
And Montessori is very, very hands-on. Not a lot of paper, pencil.
Physical learning.
Yeah. Yep. Then you can do some homeschooling with unit studies, which would be, like this last December, we did a unit study on Christmas around the world. And so for the month of December, we dropped our regular curriculum and we studied different Christmases and how they, different countries, and we talked about their food and their traditions and that sort of stuff. And so our math was based around that, and our reading was based around that. And so everything you do would be based around one topic. Then there is the Charlotte Mason homeschooling approach. And Charlotte Mason is based off of, she calls them living books. And so just good quality literature. You're going to learn history through good quality literature. You're going to learn, obviously, reading, because you're reading the good quality literature, but science, and it really based on her, or not her books, but based on good quality living books, she calls them. And the other thing about Charlotte Mason is it's an education for your whole life, and trying to take the learning out of just the school time, from just the kitchen table or wherever you do school, to making everything a learning opportunity, and always being looking for, the learning opportunities and where you can have a little lesson no matter what you're doing. So that might be focusing on, well, we're going to learn about money when we have to go get groceries, and then you're going to learn how to cook because you're going to be right there and hands-on and helping me every step of the way, and everything is a learning opportunity.
It's all an educational experience throughout your day.
Yeah, your whole life is. Yep. And then the last one is the Waldorf homeschooling. And this one I'm not quite as familiar with, but trying to get kids to, again, it more of an education for your whole life, and helping the kids understand where they are in the world, and not just a physical location, but their place in the world, and how the natural world and the larger scale of the world moves around them, and that, where are they in the world, and what's their place, and what's their long-term goals for the world, is to the best of my understanding of what I have read about Waldorf. Yeah. So,
and regardless of the approach that you pick and that you kind of use to guide you, regardless of your kids' learning style, the whole point is that we're raising these kids, we're educating these kids, and we want to teach them how to learn as much as to learn.
Right.
I think we can get a little bit caught up on this idea that they have to have this information in their head that they can recite.
Right.
Which is great, and they need to learn stuff. They definitely do. But if they don't come out of their schooling with a desire to learn, with a love for learning, then we've missed something. Because you don't learn everything that you're going to learn by the time you're 18, or by the time you're 22, or whatever you know finish your formal education. If you don't have an ability to learn and a desire to learn throughout your life, you're really going to be held back in whatever career you go into. You have to be a constant lifelong learner. So regardless of what avenue you take to raise these kids and to teach these kids and to mold, like we're molding our monkeys, the big idea there though is you want them to learn how to learn and to learn to love to learn. So that's why it's awesome to have some flexibility, some maneuverability in how you teach, to be able to go, okay, this fits my personality, this fits our family, this fits my student here, and this is going to be the best way for them to be molded into the creation that God has in store for them, and to be able to be that person that they're called to be, and then be successful in it.
Right. Well, and as you're thinking through these things and trying to make decisions on what the education is going to look like and what you want out of, or you want your kids to get out of their education, remember that it's not going to be perfect all the time. And, you know,
if ever.
Right. No, come on. Sometimes I'm perfect.
There's those days.
But it may take some trial and error. You may have listened to these learning styles and said, oh, this kid is visual all the way. And then you teach him in a visual way, and you're going, he's not getting it.
Yeah.
Try something else.
Yep.
You know, or with the teaching styles, you may say, you know what, I like the idea of Charlotte Mason and the living books, and I want to sit around on the couch and read to the kids all day as we learn. And then you realize that your kids aren't auditory learners.
Yeah.
Then you try something else, you know, and you just, you trial and error until you find what works for you, what works for the kids, and what works for the family as a whole. And it's okay if that takes a while.
Same way, just as our kids need to be lifelong learners,
Right.
we have to be lifelong learners as we are learning how to teach, as we're learning how to communicate information, as we're learning how to raise the kids that God has so graciously put in our lives. It's this ongoing process of we need to learn,
Right.
we need to grow, just as our kids do.
Right.
So, yeah, that's I think what we have for you on learning styles and teaching styles. I think I got those terms right. Okay.
Yep.
So I hope that helps you. That kind of wraps up this top 10 list and this thinking about starting homeschooling. So thank you so much for sticking around. We would love it if you would subscribe to our channel. If you would hit that like button on this video and share some comments with us. We'd love to hear what you're doing, what you've found valuable in these videos, and what you've maybe didn't find valuable. We'd love to hear your input on that. So thanks for joining us as we talk about molding our monkeys. Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. We got some other videos right here for you to watch. We would love it if you would subscribe to our channel and hit that like button.